Okay guys, so through that lecture we saw all the muscles of the back, and we're going to just break it down into some simple forms like we usually do. So I'm just going to show you how to set it up, and then you get to decide how detailed or if you want to do just the surface or the deeper muscles. That's up to you. So remember, when we're starting, all we're going to do is we're going to start with the rib cage, and we're going to start with our big egg shape of the rib cage. Oops, I'll go a little bigger. And we want to get a symmetry line, get our shoulder line in there. We don't need the bottom of that rib cage. We want room for our obliques, and then here's our pelvis. And note that this and this might be half and half. Your model's going to vary, and then if they're sitting down, this won't be half because they're going to be sitting down on the glute muscles. So up here, we're looking to get a little measurement line on either side, and remember that the shoulder blade comes down halfway. So from where the edge of the rib cage touches the shoulder line, that's where the J of your shoulder blade is going to be, your scapula, and they're going to point outwards. So we got our J's in here, and there's about one space in between them, and then we can start to set up the shoulder itself. So remember, you want the muscle to grab onto that bone, the deltoid wraps around, and then it comes down about even with where those shoulder blades are going to be, and your lat muscle kind of creates the armpit there. So our arm's going to kind of come out like this, and I'll just give a suggestion of the shoulder. And so when we look down the body, we look to see if we're drawing a male, we're going to see that external oblique as separate. If we were drawing a female, it would blend and the hip would be wider. We're drawing a male for our back muscles, so we'll do this. We want to check to see if the hips are even with or a little narrower usually than the upper body. And then I'm just going to check my measurements once again because I think I'm a little long down here. And then look at your model, and you want to look to see how long the glute line is, the fold in between the glutes, and then you have your sacral triangle, and then your hips, the iliac crest reaches up and over. So remember that about even with the middle of the line of the glutes, that's for males going to be the widest point of the hip, and then we can just start the fold and start the leg. And then for females, remember that would be lower. So we're just going to do, I'll just do a male for this one. And now we can start to look at the muscles. Let me get this shoulder in real quick. And again, the lat is going to take the form. And I could even put in the top of the head, and here's where the trapezius starts. So we're going to want to get that. So here's our guy. He's a little bit long and lean. But we're going to roll with it. So let's think of the big muscles first, because that'll make it easy for us. So we know that the trapezius starts at the back of the head, it grabs onto the whole shoulder blade, and then it drops down and it reaches to somewhere between the 10th and 12th rib. So somewhere in this little zone here, your trapezius is going to end, and it's going to drop down like so. It opens in the middle, so you'll look for that aponeurosis, that wide flat tendon that comes down, and then remember there's another little aponeurosis here, and then one at the tail. So we talked about how there's 3 aponeurotic areas of the trapezius, and we even talked about how sometimes they're not even. One can be higher, one can be lower. So there's our trapezius muscle. We can put in our latissimus dorsi muscle, so that's coming across like this. Its origin is the sacrum and the iliac crest, and its insertion is about 1/3 of the way down on the humerus bone, and so it comes down and around like this. And we can just make that big kind of a triangle shape. And it also has a wide aponeurosis. So your abdominal aponeurosis in the back, the posterior one, goes like this. And then we're going to see all of those striations of muscles going up and out this way. The trapezius, what we're going to start seeing is our muscles are going to, you have the ones that are going to pull on the shoulder blades this way, pull on the shoulder blades this way or pull on them this way, so that you get the raising, the pulling back, and the pulling down. We know that these are external obliques on the side and that the fibers of those muscles go the same way you put your hands in your pockets. So oblique means slanted. And then what we're going to look for is we kind of drew in our deltoid over here. And remember, it goes all the way back to the back of your scapula. However, part of this is tendon, aponeurosis again, and that'll just kind of, so it's going to kind of wrap around like this. And this is that posterior section of it. And so that leaves us this here. And what I might want to show, if I'm doing surface over here, I will see the teres major is the big one down low that many times bunches up like an egg, teres minor, and then the big infraspinatus. And all of these, remember, are your rotator cuff muscles, and your teres minor and the infraspinatus, they hook on, if this is my humerus right here, they're hooking onto the back, and then the teres major goes through and hooks onto the front edge of that. So you just want to kind of show that. So the deltoid's going to drop over them, and I just want to show that these guys are kind of deep. So they're kind of in here. You know, all these other muscles are kind of covering them a little bit. Again, I decided I wanted to show just a little bit of the humerus. You can do that, or you can just simply show the deltoid if you'd like, and show some of those striations of muscles there. You could decide that you don't want to show the trapezius on this side at all. Maybe you want to show instead some of the underlying muscles that are holding the shoulder blades in place. So for instance, here's our rhomboid major and minor. Our levator scapulae would be going this way. And remember, these guys are, the striations are like this. Perhaps we start to see some of our erector spinae groups. So remember, the spinalis group was the one that was really close to the spine, and it's kind of grabbing from vertebrae to vertebrae. And then your longissimus is the middle section. And then remember the iliocostalis section. So this is all the erector spinae group, or the sacrospinalis, but this one is the one that's on the outside, and it sends little slips to each and every one of your ribs all the way up. And remember this spinalis group, we have this is our thoracic area, and remember we had our cervical area before, so we had the semispinalis capitis up here. Well, it becomes the thoracic down here, and then we have our lumbar section. So you might show some of those. We might see some of the deeper, the serratus posterior inferior would be down in here, reaching through like this. And even if you wanted to show the tiny little transversus muscles that hold your vertebrae together, you can. But again, if I just want to show the surface stuff and let some of this go, that is fine. You guys can decide how detailed you want to be with it. But we can start to remember when we get down here and we're seeing this aponeurosis and you're getting these little fibers grabbing onto it, let them be kind of a little organic looking, and they're all kind of going up into the arm, and we're going across like so. So we start to show these muscles, and then maybe they're kind of shading the muscles down here, and this teres major is can be kind of egg shape, and then the teres minor is kind of low, and then many times the infraspinatus has a tight fascia over it, so sometimes they show it in some of our handouts kind of in white. And so I start building these things up so that you start to see those striations a little more clearly. And we're, again, kind of just breaking it up into simpler shapes so that it's easier to deal with. When we get into the glute area, we have our gluteus medius, maximus, and then we have our minimus. We have our internal rotator cuff of the hip with our piriformis gemellis major and minor, our obturator, all of those things inside. Again, if you just simply want to show the gluteus medius and maximus, remember that the medius takes most of the iliac crest, and your great trochanter, your hip bone, is sticking out here, and this is where it's going to grab onto. So where the medius is going like this, and if that's even with the wide point of the hips for men. So this would be where this medius is grabbing onto. I might show the crest by itself like this so we can kind of see, maybe not quite that detailed, but you know, just so you can kind of see that everything's grabbing onto it. And then the Maximus does this. It grabs onto this back little half all the way down your sacrum, a little bit of your coccyx, and it comes down and around and it grabs onto this, and then it grabs onto the IT band, your iliotibial tract. So all of these muscles grab onto this iliotibial tract and they end up going down to your tibia. So ilio meaning your hip area, tibia going down to your tibia, iliotibial tract or IT band. And remember that this gluteus maximus muscle is one of your thickest muscles. It's almost 2 inches thick, and it'll grab onto that all the way down. And then what's left here, remember we have this fatty pad. So the muscle itself is kind of at this angle, and this fatty pad in here allows us to sit on our ischial tuberosities. Remember our hip bone down in there. So we have this fatty pad underneath that we can show. If you wanted to show, like here's the crest of the, if I wanted to actually show a little bit of like the hip bone in there, and then maybe I see like, here would be, oops, let me go a little lower with this. I'm showing just a little of like where the bone would be and where the trochanter would be. Now if I wanted to show like the gluteus minimus, it's down in here. And then if I wanted to start, so it's kind of filling in this, remember it's underneath these others. And then if I wanted to start showing where these your rotator muscles are, they would be in this area here. So you can go as deep, and they're covering this whole area. So you can go as deep or as shallow as you want. Remember to use line quality in some of these areas. So if you want to like push the lines and kind of let them go in and out of the page, do that. Maybe I want to push the spinal gutter in just a little bit. Maybe I'm seeing this group, the erector spinae group, under here, and it might be shading the pull of this aponeurosis that we have here. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So if you need to define things, or if you need to show that something's deeper than the other, now's when I would be starting to work on that. But in the beginning, remember that all we're looking for is our egg shape. We're going to put the shoulder line, we're going to cut off the bottom of the egg. We have 2 obliques, and we have our circle for the pelvis. We put in our 2 J shapes, and we're going to look for how long the gluteal fold is. And if your person's sitting down, we might see something like this. We don't see the fold very much. We just see the sacrum almost sitting on the ground. So we end up with this, and then we put in our shoulder blade, or our shoulders, deltoids, and then we can start building it up from there. And again, all I started with was the big things. Here's the trapezius, here's the lat muscle, here's our obliques that we're used to, and then we're thinking there's these rotator cuff muscles up here. We have our glutes here. We have our rotator cuffs in the hip if you want to show them, if you want to show rhomboids and things like that. Break it down into big, simple, easy things as you're starting, and then build up from there. Again, I think if I was working on this a little bit further, I would make my guy a little bit wider. He's a little bit thin, but we do have some models that are pretty thin, and I think our model that we're working with this week might be that way. So everybody's a little bit different. So again, just breaking it down into simple forms. You decide whether you want to show surface or deep, and on these little slips you might show the ribs that they're grabbing onto, something like that you could do as well. But again, if you just want to show surface, and if we look at some of the examples that we have over here, you can see that they're mostly surface. The big one in the middle top is showing the middle layer with our spinalis, longissimus, and our iliocostalis showing on the right, and then just the trapezius and the lat muscle on the left, and then the rotator cuff muscles of the hip on the right, and just the glutes on the left. So, and you can use red conte if you want to show the muscles. You can use pastels. Notice on that red conte piece, the lumbar aponeurosis has some kind of pulls to it. So you're kind of seeing those pulls, and then notice that there's fatty material under the glutes that's showing, and adipose tissue kind of wrapping around the hip. So look for those little details. But again, you can decide whether to go very detailed or just kind of the surface things that you're seeing. So that's what we're working on, and we'll put this in our portfolio. And during our next in-person meeting, if you have any questions, we can go over those as well. So good luck, guys. Let me know if you need any help. Just email me or contact me through Canvas. Thank you.